What's going on guys, Bunks here and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a long awaited part 2 to my most popular video of features I wish I knew earlier on when playing No Man's Sky. Now, this video is aimed more at players who are fairly new to No Man's Sky, so if you're a seasoned player or if you're coming back to the game after a long break, some of these things may seem obvious to you but you may not know them either, so make sure you stick around to the end so you don't miss anything important. Also, if you haven't seen my other video, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check that out as well. The things I wish I knew in that video are also all totally different to the ones in this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get stuck in. So first up, this probably took me an embarrassingly long time to realise, and I'm sure I've wasted so much time doing it wrong in the past, and that is being able to craft multiple items at once in your inventory. Yep, it's so simple but also so very easy to miss. The amount of times when I've just crafted one item at a time over and over again when I need to say 10 of that item is just annoying when you realise you can do it all in one go. Of course, you can only craft a certain amount with the resources you have available to you, and it shouldn't let you craft more units than it would fit in a stack, but it will save you a lot of time if you want to craft multiple units of a certain resource in one go. Also, I believe you're only able to do this on a brand new stack of that resource and not on an existing one, which is a minor inconvenience but nothing to worry about really. So, how do you craft multiple resources in one go? Well, on PlayStation you press R1 and L1, on Xbox you press RB and LB, and on PC you press A and D. And it really is that simple. So, let's talk about refining resources. Now obviously you get access to a personal refiner almost immediately in No Man's Sky, which is pretty cool, but it's not until later on that you get yourself the blueprints for a medium or a large refiner. But what I didn't know until after getting these large and medium refiners is you can make more of one resource by adding another resource to it, usually oxygen. So for example, if I slap chlorine and oxygen into a medium or large refiner, you're going to increase your chlorine count 6-fold. Now before the waypoint update back in 2022, this was a very easy way to make yourself millions of units, but of course Hello Games have nuked the value of chlorine from 602 units to 205 units apiece. No idea why, but we move on. Main takeaway from this is if you want to get a shed load of some resources, you may find it easier if you bang it into a medium or large refiner and add some oxygen to it, because you could get up to 6 times the original amount, so make sure you stock up on oxygen before doing this. So a couple of the resources that this works for alongside chlorine is ionized cobalt. Adding some oxygen to that will turn 1 unit into 6 units, and also condensed carbon as well will turn 1 unit to 6 units with some added oxygen. So if you find yourself needing any more of those resources, just stick them in a medium or large refiner with some oxygen and voila! You'll be rolling in the resources in no time at all. It's just a shame that Hello Games nuked the values of them so they're not as lucrative as they used to be. Next up I'm going to talk about the quick menu. Now obviously I knew this was a thing early on so you could recharge your various technology modules, summon pets and so on, but what I didn't know was how much you can actually do with the quick menu depending on whether you're on foot, in your ship or in some sort of exocraft. So for example, I recently found out that once you've installed an advanced scanner onto your exocraft you can instantly find yourself a drop pod which will give you an exosuit expansion slot after you've fixed up some components. Now that is far cheaper than spending the money on a space station where the anomaly for the same thing, and not only that, but you can instantly find trade terminals from your ship and find underwater structures and objects of interest from the quick menu when you're in your funky little Nautilon exocraft. So with that being said, I would highly recommend you spend some time adding advanced scanners to your ship and exocraft and then looking through the quick menu to see what you can look for. It really does save a lot of time when you're searching for specific things. As you may or may not know, you can get your first freighter in No Man's Sky for free. Now this isn't something I wish I knew earlier, but for some of you it might be, so there's a little bonus tip. But what I did wish I'd known earlier is that you shouldn't always take the first freighter you come across that is free. I did this on my first ever save and ended up with a really basic C-class freighter, and then had to spend loads of time along with millions upon millions of units getting a better one, thinking that I could only get a free freighter once, and that it was just pot luck on what you get. So, in a situation where you do come across your first free freighter, and it is just a basic C-class one, I'd highly recommend you take the payment for the captain instead, as you will definitely get the opportunity multiple times in the future to get a free freighter again, so you'll more than likely eventually get an A-class one, or if you're really lucky, an S-class one. And if you're unsure on how to get a free freighter in the first place, you should check out my quick guide on how to do just that. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below for you. Now, we all know that nanites are a little bit harder to come by than units in No Man's Sky, but what I wish I knew earlier was how many different resources you can actually refine into nanites. Like, you can refine a whole load of junk into nanites if you find yourself having any residual goop, viscous fluids, living slime, or runaway mold. All of these can be refined into nanites, eventually. Some junk will refine into other junk, but eventually it will refine into nanites. But still, it's worth doing, and then especially if you come across a curious deposits, aka runaway mold, on a planet's surface, then you can get yourself a few hundred or even thousands of nanites, depending on how many runaway mold balls there are. A few other notable mentions that refine into nanites are salvage data, pugnium, larval cores from whispering eggs, and platinum, so you're never far off refining a few hundred nanites out of something in your inventory. Also, whilst you're here folks, it'd be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. And if there are any tips you wish you knew earlier that I haven't mentioned in this video, why don't you leave a comment below so other players can learn something new. So this next one probably took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out as well, but when you're searching for a specific resource that may not be that common, as long as you've discovered it before, you can set a waypoint to that resource using the catalogue in your main menu. It really is that simple. I've spent far too much time in the past hunting for resources that weren't available in the system I was currently in, so don't make the mistake I did and just use the catalogue to instantly get a path to finding that resource that you're after. Simples. If you know of No Man's Sky portals, then you should know of portal glyphs. There are 16 of them in total, and having all of them will allow you to use portals to their full potential. Now, what I wish I knew earlier in this case was how to find all these portal glyphs quickly. You will find them when you come across Traveller's Grave, but finding these graves just by exploring is incredibly rare and will take you forever, so obviously you want a quick way of finding them, right? So, when you're exploring space stations, regular ones, not outlaw ones, you will occasionally see a traveller who is neither Gek, Vy'keen or Korvax, and it also looks like they're slightly holographic. And these travellers are the keys to finding travellers' graves. Simply walk up to them and have a chat and ask where they came from. It will cost you about 100 nanites, but they will give you the location to a nearby grave, which when you visit it, you'll be given a portal glyph. So if you repeat these steps 16 times, or less if you've already got a few glyphs, and voila, you can now use portals to their full potential. And if you want a full guide on finding the glyphs and how to find portals, I'll leave a link to the description below for you to both of those videos I've done in the past showing you how to do just that. Side note to portals, if you're a Reddit user like myself, I would highly recommend you take a look at r/NMS Coordinate Exchange, as it contains the coordinates to all sorts of weird and wonderful things uploaded by the No Man's Sky community, ranging from epic bases, paradise planets, super rare ships, and so on. So I play a lot of my No Man's Sky in survival mode, so storms have more an effect on you there than they do in normal mode, but these two things will still be useful to know, as there are two things I wish I knew earlier with regards to storms. And the first one is that if you get out your terrain manipulator and dig down, you will get protection from the storm. So if you want, you could move along the planet underground with the unlimited terrain manipulator fuel source of silicate powder. And secondly, one thing that took me a while to realise is when you're in a storm, your jetpack fuel will last much longer than if you're not in a storm, so you could brave the storm and make it back to your ship or a nearby building even if they're hundreds and hundreds of units away from you. Bonus jetpack tip, did you know that you get unlimited jetpack fuel going up a steep wall, so you'll never have to worry about finding yourself stuck in a cave or stuck away from your ship if it's on top of a mountain. Moving on, if you want to gather large amounts of widely available resources in a short amount of time, like ferrite dust, carbon, dihydrogen or something like that, then it is far quicker to jump on into your ship, point your ship to the ground and just start shooting. You'll rack up thousands of units of very common resources in absolutely no time at all, so it's far quicker than mining rocks and plants instead using your mining beam. Just a nice little time saving tip for you guys right there, and also very useful if you need all these resources for creating yourself an epic base. So I bet, like myself, you've probably heard your exosuit say inventory full more times than you care to count. Well, here's a little storage tip that I wish I knew earlier on that doesn't even involve you plonking extra resources into your starship, exocraft or freighter inventory and clogging up those instead. All it involves is the nutrient processor. Yep, who'd have thought it, eh? Well, did you know the nutrient processor has a whole bunch of storage itself which you can put extra resources into, and most importantly, if you pick up the nutrient processor then plonk it back down at a later date, everything you put in there in the first place will still be there. Pretty neat, right? So if you ever find yourself needing extra storage, craft yourself a nutrient processor and stick those extra resources in there. Simples. I've got a slight correction from my first video on tips I wish I knew earlier, and that is I mentioned you can change the size of your terrain manipulator, but I didn't mention that making it larger gives you less resources, whereas if you make it smaller it will give you more resources from deposits on a planet's surface. If you want more resources from a curious deposit, make your terrain manipulator smaller, and if you want to save time but at the expense of some resources, make your terrain manipulator larger when excavating deposits like copper from a planet's surface. And there you have it, folks. There are a few more tips I wish I knew earlier on when playing No Man's Sky. I hope that whether you're a seasoned No Man's Sky player or a new player, that you found this video useful and that you learned something new. If there are any tips that you think I've missed, please leave a comment below and let everyone know. And if you're still here, it'd be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. We'll be doing more videos like this in the future, along with videos covering all the aspects of No Man's Sky, like amazing locations, glitches, update rumours and more, so you don't want to miss out on those, right? And as always, thank you for watching and catch you next time.